In the ancient city of Jericho, the walls were thick and the gates were heavy. High up in a house built right into those massive stone walls lived a woman named Rahab. While the city below was full of noise and worry, Rahab often looked out her window at the distant horizon. She felt like a bird in a cage, wondering if there was a bigger world beyond the gray stones of her home. Rahab had heard amazing stories about a group of people traveling through the desert. These Israelites were guided by a God who did wonders, parting the sea and leading them with a pillar of fire. Deep in her heart, Rahab felt a spark of hope. She started to believe that this God was the true King of heaven and earth, and she whispered prayers for a chance to know him. One evening, two strangers named Jamin and Kenan arrived at Jericho's gate. They were scouts sent by Joshua, the leader of the Israelites, to see if the city was as strong as it looked. They needed a place to stay where no one would ask too many questions. They found their way to Rahab's door, and she welcomed them in with a kind smile. But Jericho was a city of secrets, and word reached the king that spies had entered. Suddenly, there was a loud pounding on Rahab's door. Soldiers stood there, demanding she hand over the men. Rahab stayed calm and brave. She had already hidden Jamin and Kenan under stalks of flax, drying on her roof. She told the guards the men had left just as the gates were closing. Once the soldiers hurried away, Rahab climbed up to the roof. She found Kenan peeking out from under the bundles of flax. "I know your God is powerful," she whispered to him. "I have helped you, so please, promise to help me. When your army comes to take the city, show kindness to my family and keep us all safe." Jamin joined them on the roof and listened to Rahab's request. He and Kenan agreed to her plan. Jamin pulled a bright scarlet cord from his pack and handed it to her. "Tie this rope in your window," Jamin said. "Everyone inside this house will be protected when the battle begins. But you must keep the cord visible so our people will know which home is yours." Because her house was part of the city wall, Rahab helped the men escape without using the main gates. She tied a strong rope to her window frame and lowered Kenan down the outside of the wall. She watched as he reached the ground and disappeared into the shadows. As soon as they were gone, she tied the scarlet cord to the window, a bright streak of red against the gray stone. Soon, the Israelite army arrived. For 6 days, they marched around Jericho in total silence, led by priests blowing ram's horns. Inside the city, the people were terrified, but Rahab gathered her father, Manoah, and the rest of her family into her home. She sat with her father, holding his hand and telling him not to fear, for the red cord was in the window. On the 7th day, the Israelites marched around the city 7 times. Joshua stood at the front of the people, and the priests prepared their instruments. Suddenly, a long, loud blast from the horns filled the air, and the entire army let out a mighty shout. The ground began to tremble, and the great walls of Jericho started to crack and tumble down. Dust and smoke filled the air as the walls fell, but a small miracle happened. One section of the wall remained standing, the part with the scarlet cord. Joshua sent Jamin and Kenan to find Rahab. They climbed over the rubble and reached her door. Jamin reached out his hand to Rahab, pulling her and her family safely away from the ruined city. Rahab left her old life behind and became part of the people of Israel. She was no longer a stranger, but a hero. She eventually met a kind man named Salmon, and they fell in love. They were married in a beautiful ceremony, starting a new family built on the faith that had saved Rahab's life. Rahab's story became a legendary part of history. She was the great-great-grandmother of the famous King David, and many years later, her family line led to Jesus. Rahab showed the world that it doesn't matter where you start or how high the walls are around you. With faith and courage, anyone can help change the course of history for the better.